We begin tonight with the Corrections Minister and a denial the government has failed in its prison planning. A major spike in the number of prisoners does appear to have caught the government out, and it's today announced plans to build another 1,800 prison beds at a cost of about $1 billion over 5 years. The Finance Minister, who earlier this week was contemplating spending options for a $1.8 billion surplus, says the $1 billion price tag will limit options for new spending, putting any possible tax cuts in jeopardy. Here's our political reporter, Demelza Leslie.
Judith Collins says the number of prisoners is increasing faster than projected because of changes to bail laws for drug and family violence offences. She says Corrections is having to advertise for hundreds more prison staff after last year slashing more than 250 prison jobs. But Judith Collins told reporters that isn't due to poor planning.
What we are doing is now planning for the future, and we're very deadly serious about family violence and methamphetamine.
But what about the 260 jobs?
I'm sure that there will be jobs available now for those people.
The prison population is forecast to reach 10,000 by next year, and Corrections is looking to recruit 600 new prison officers by next September. The Greens Corrections spokesperson David Clendon says the minister has dropped the ball.
Suggesting that in any way it's not a failure of planning is simply untrue. Corrections Association said at the time that it was a serious mistake to be sacking, making redundant experienced prison officers, because why should they now come back into the system?
Most of the places will be in a new 1,500-bed facility at Waikeria Prison in Waikato, which will be built by a public-private partnership but run by Corrections. It's expected to take its first prisoners in 2020. Mr Clendon says the government should be trying to reduce offending, not building bigger prisons.
The way to reduce prison population is to invest in drug and alcohol treatment, is to invest in literacy programs, and critically to invest in mental health. We are in a mental health crisis in New Zealand, and the prisons by default is where that problem's landing up.
Last week, the Finance Minister, Bill English, said a bigger-than-expected surplus gave the government options for future spending, including a possible tax cut program. But he says the $1 billion prison price tag, plus ongoing running costs, now has to be included in coming budgets.
Well, it reduces options. This is something that has to be done. We have to provide the capacity. We'd certainly prefer to be in a position where this wasn't happening, but the money has to be spent, and it does mean less available for other things.
During question time, Labour's Grant Robertson asked Mr English why the government was investing in another prison.
Does he recall saying on the 11th of May 2011 that prisons were a moral and fiscal failure and that the Wiri prison would be the last prison his government built? And in light of his last answer, is his plan for regional economic growth just building more prisons? Is that as good as it gets?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I do recall saying that, and the statement I made about not building any more prisons turned out to be not correct. So the government now...
Order.
Actually, the government doesn't have much choice. The courts have sentencing criminals every week, and we've got to have somewhere to lock them up.
In 2012, the government set itself a target of reducing reoffending by 25% by next June. However, it's falling well short of this, with reoffending rates down by just 7% to date. Judith Collins says that target was an ambitious one, and that prisoner rehabilitation programs will also be increased under its plan. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Demelza Leslie.